Welcome to the 2022-2023 uh, Annual General Assembly of the National Art Gallery of Canada.
Very happy to be hosting this meeting in the Reme Modern in Saskatoon. Thanks to my work at the Conseil culturel francescois, my radio show Couleur Café, and many other activities, I've become an avid promoter of Francophone arts and culture in Saskatchewan. So I'm thrilled to see that the National Gallery is continue to reach across Canada in its work, helping us to connect to each other through the power of art.
Nous aidant à nous relier les uns aux autres grâce au pouvoir de l'art. Today's hour-long bilingual event will include remarks, a panel discussion, and a question and answer session with the gallery's chair and director and CEO, as well as today's guest panelists. Headsets for simultaneous interpretation are available at the entrance. Online, you can click the interpretation button at the bottom right of your screen. Sign language interpretation is also available, both ASL and LSQ. Please note to the members of the audience in person that this event is being recorded, and I would also invite you now to put your phones on mute if you haven't done that already. To begin tonight's festivities and event, I would like to introduce Lyndon J. Linklater, a traditional knowledge keeper of the Thunderchild First Nation and the Indigenous Relations Advisor for the Remy Modern. On behalf of the National Gallery of Canada, I would like to offer you a tobacco offering. If you can please step up to the stage.
Got time myself. Antof temptig no aku magantik te tamskatina wow. Na nas kumanomu ma stem au migoyen kapik squish tamwin kapik squatches sinigan. Tena mio asin kio au mi ma mop tikwi pats. Ngwaya mtehten ne hio yonni gan big squan o sama ya nika wi eset kakioki gwai ne kakioki gwai kisemanto imi ghostik to nemiwasan. So in the language of the Plains Cree, I said that I'm very honored to be presented tobacco to say a few words, to bring greetings, to welcome you all to our territory, our Treaty 6 territory. And in my mother's teachings, she taught us that our Creator had given us a language as Indigenous peoples. And it's always very important to start off in what was given to us as a people. We're living in a time of reconciliation in our country, and it's a really beautiful, wonderful thing. Not that long ago, you would never hear what are called land acknowledgements anywhere. But now you go to a hockey game, football game, meetings, and you're hearing that. As a country and as an Indigenous person, experiencing life in our country here, I can assure you we have a long way to go, but we're crawling. And before we can walk, we have to crawl. And certainly before we can run, we have to learn to walk. But reconciliation is a wonderful, beautiful thing. As part of the reconciliation message, I just want to again welcome all of you to this beautiful building here, Remy Modern. Not only do I take pride in working here, but it's also cutting edge, not only in its appearance, but in what it's doing as an institution. And we're not the only ones. There are other many institutions as well doing that right across Canada. So I bring greetings, and I'm going to sing you a short little song to start us off in a good way. If you want to sing along, it's in the back of your programs there. I'm just kidding. It's just a welcome song. So welcome to Remy Modern. Have a wonderful meeting. Enjoy yourselves here, and just to start us off, a short little welcome song. So it kind of just sounds like this. Hey-ya, hey-ya, hey-ho. Hey-ya, hey-ya, hey-ho. Hey-ya, hey-ya, hey-ho, hey. Just like that. Welcome to Remy Modern. Have a wonderful evening. We'll catch you later.
Écossais and Miigwech Linden. I would like to introduce Françoise Lyon, who has served as chair of the National Gallery's Board of Trustees for the past 6 years. Françoise is a senior executive with extensive experience in the financial services industry and is currently president and partner of DGC Capital. She is also a global board director of the International Women's Forum and founder of the Women of Influence Circle of the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. Françoise, please step to the stage.
I really don't need this. Yes, and I need to do this too. Bonsoir. Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Shannon. I'm very pleased to join you all here on Treaty 6 land. I would like to thank Yuan Lund. I would like to thank Eileen Burns and the staff of the Remy Modern for so graciously hosting us. The National Gallery belongs to all Canadians. As we hold meetings and forge partnerships across the country, we expand our national outreach by including institutions, artists, art lovers from all regions. And we are thrilled to be here in Saskatoon this year for our board meeting in this annual public meeting.
To the members, donors, partners, and citizens present today, in person or virtually, we're grateful for the interest you have in our work and for the opportunity given to us to report on the progress we've made since our last public annual general meeting.
I would like to thank my wonderful colleagues on the Board of Trustees who come from coast to coast to coast in Canada for their work, their integrity, and their commitment. I would like to acknowledge, and I would like to ask them to please stand when I name them, Trustees Manny Blair, Lisa Brown, Terry Burgoyne, Suzanne Cote-Freeman, Dominique Hamel, Adad Hanna, Julie J., Harold Robinson, and Sarah Stasiuk, who are here today in person, and as well as Trustee Roshi Chada, who is joining us virtually from Montreal. The 2022-23 year began as the world finally emerged from the hardships of the COVID-19 pandemic. We appreciate the support of the Government of Canada during this trying time, including emergency relief funding.
Our partners, in particular the National Gallery of Canada Foundation, as well as our distinguished patrons and corporate supporters, have also made extraordinary contributions in 22-23. Their generosity is reflected in so many of our successes.
Thanks in no small part to this support, our focus on the collection was stronger than ever in 2022-23, with acquisitions totaling $10.9 million, well above the previous 3 years, and art donations valued at $11.1 million. I really think that's remarkable. Bear with me, I have more numbers. I come from finance, so they stuck them all in my speech. Total attendance at the gallery was 279,000 people, which is up 68% from the year before, with revenues from operations up 81% to $7.7 million.
In this period of new growth, we've also endeavored to open our doors more widely to diverse communities and varied perspectives across the country. As a national museum, we have the responsibility to reflect society and to connect with the communities we serve. That's why our national partnerships are extremely important. They were a high priority in 2022-2023 as we were working in a collaborative manner to develop new approaches to building and sharing our collection with communities across Canada.
For example, for the first time, Canada's representative work at the prestigious 2022 Venice Biennale was brought home to showcase in several venues across the country. The exhibition by Stan Douglas, called 2011 Does Not Equal 1848, has been presented as a touring partnership between the National Gallery of Canada, the Remy Modern, and the Polygon Gallery of Vancouver in collaboration with presenting partner RBC. This powerful exhibition is curated by Reid Shire and was coordinated here at the Remy by Troy Grunsdahl with the support of many others. It opens at the National Gallery actually this Thursday. The National Gallery oversees Canada's representation in Venice and convenes a jury to select the artists. Stan Douglas, 2011 does not equal 1848, attracted nearly 70% of the 800,000 attendees and stood out as one of the highlights of the show in 2022.
The gallery is currently busy preparing for next year's Biennale in 2024 in Venice. Canada will be represented by Kapwani Kiwanga, whose work focuses on power imbalances and the structures that create, perpetuate, and protect them. It's interesting to note that our first Facebook post on this topic generated the largest audience of the year for the gallery, reaching 40,000 users. This represents an increase of around 1,100% compared to normal. We've clearly struck a chord here.
We extend our gratitude to all supporters of Canada's representation at the 60th Venice Biennale. A very special thanks as well to our Canadian Artists and Venice Endowment patrons and to Risa Greenberg, whose generous financial support funded the restoration of the Canadian Pavilion in Venice. Another gallery initiative in 2022-23 that really resonated with the public was our new approach to free Thursday nights. Vibrant new art programs and lively music filled our spaces with energy and attracted thousands of diverse visitors, with many experiencing the gallery for the first time. On Thursday, March 16, 2023, we welcomed almost 2,000 visitors, which was among the highest ever. Average attendance for free nights since the new approach began in December 2022 is up 52% from the year earlier. Another success for the gallery during this past year was our exhibition General Idea, the most comprehensive retrospective ever produced on this trio of groundbreaking Canadian artists. It attracted over 74,000 people between June and November 2022. Last spring, the exhibition embarked on a highly anticipated European tour starting at the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, and it moves this month to the Gropius Bau in Berlin.
General Idea was our first major show to focus on queer themes. As Canada's leading National Museum of Fine Arts, we exist to serve all Canadians. We work to ensure that the art we collect and share reflects the richness of our heritage, our society, and our world.
And now, we are sincerely thrilled to welcome Jean-François Bellil as the gallery's new director and CEO. Known for his sharp artistic vision and philanthropic innovation, Jean-François transformed the Musée d'Art de Joliette, which he led for 7 years, by leveraging employee creativity to build a harmonious and motivating team spirit. At the same time, he helped grow the museum community and double the in-person attendance. We look forward to his next exciting chapter at the NGC under his inspiring leadership. Bienvenue, Jean-François.
Yes, it deserves applause.
So on behalf of the board, I want to use my last few moments here to express my deep appreciation for and confidence in the entire National Gallery of Canada team. You're an extraordinary group of people, and we're very, very proud to serve you. And to wholeheartedly thank the National Gallery of Canada Foundation and its board for their unwavering support to the National Gallery of Canada. In closing, I want to thank everybody here and online for joining us. Merci.
Thank you very much, Françoise.
Shannon? Oh, sorry.
I need the stool. Merci beaucoup, Françoise.
I now have the pleasure of introducing the gallery's new director and CEO, Jean-François Bellil.
Jean-François began his role on July 17th, having previously served as the executive director and chief curator of the Musée d'Art Juliette, as Françoise mentioned in her speech. It's one of Canada's most important regional museums. He has held managerial positions in the visual arts world in numerous countries and has curated many contemporary art exhibitions at the regional, national, and international level. I now invite Jean-François to come forward.
Thank you. Is this working? Thank you. Thank you very much for the very kind words. I'm really happy and thrilled to be here. This is my first annual public meeting for the National Gallery. And as Françoise said, I was started on July 17th, but then it was summer months. It was a little bit complicated. I'm still in my early days. So you'll understand that my speech talks a little about the past, of course, but focuses a bit more on the present and the future. And if you have tricky questions towards the past, I will do my best to answer them, but I might not have the answers to everything. Avant de
Before starting, I'd like to thank the museum team, the gallery team. I'm really lucky to be able to work with you in this new adventure. I'm very touched by this. I'd like to thank Françoise Lyon and the entire board. Thank you for believing in me and wanting to dream the gallery's future with me. And I also would like to thank the Museum Foundation for its support that's been so long-standing.
I also want to thank Aileen and Yuan and the whole team at the Remy Modern. It's the first time that I come to Saskatoon, and the city and the museum does not disappoint. I'm really impressed by the quality of the programming, the beauty of the city, the quality of the people. You got something special going here. And I hope that this, me coming for the first time, will be one of many numerous trips to come and numerous partnerships that we can do and build together in the coming years. Building partnerships is something that I love doing, and it will be a focus of my tenure at the National Gallery. And I hope that it will be with numerous museums and galleries across the country, but also with artist-run organizations and community organizations, so that we can build the future of Canadian art together. I think we all play an extremely important role in developing that national ecosystem. And that the National Gallery has it in its mandate to foster these connections, these bridges, to share meaningful stories and to serve the artists that we serve, and build a common vision, I hope. Le Musée des Beaux-Arts du Canada travaille fort pour...
The National Gallery of Canada is working hard to develop collaborative approaches across Canada. We have a national outreach program that always existed in one form or another that's creating very interesting things currently, and will do that even more so. It will be one of my great priorities in the future. It already was in 2022-23 and will be so even longer, even more. The new position of Senior Manager for National Outreach was created last year. We had a first national consultation. We achieved some initial projects, and I hope there will be many, many more. Exploring collaborative models for exhibitions and projects is interesting, but I hope we'll also explore more in terms of acquisitions of works of art, of knowledge, of people. These are all things I want to work on. In 2022, the museum launched a multi-year national outreach initiative thanks to one philanthropist, Michael Nesbitt from Winnipeg, who's very important, who made the generous gift of $752,000 to fund the development of this new vision. We want to continue to build thanks to Mr. Nesbitt. And I hope that these ideas and opportunities of collaboration will come from everywhere, not just from the team and from Ottawa.
So I've started about a month and a half ago. And since I've started, it's funny because when I started, a lot of people were asking me, so what are your big plans? What are you going to do in 100 days? And all of a sudden I felt like a politician that had to have a roadmap for the first 100 days. Unfortunately, sorry to disappoint, I don't have one. The number one priority that I had for the first couple of months that I'm still enacting now is to listen, is to talk to the people on the ground, to talk to the team, to talk to the people that will make the future of the National Gallery, and that those people are not only internal, they're also external, to understand where we are and what are the different visions and where we can go together. And this collaborative vision has to be informed by team members and by partners everywhere.
A few words about the exhibitions over the past year. Françoise mentioned a few of them, but I'll tell you about a general idea. I'm going to open this at the Gropius Bau in Berlin next week. It's very exciting. There are also some very important exhibitions. There was Uninvited Canadian Women Artists in the Modern Moment.
An exhibition that celebrated extraordinary women that were painters, that were photographers, that were weavers, that were beadworkers, that were sculptors, It's an exhibition that was put together by the McMichael Museum outside of Toronto or in Toronto. So I'd like to thank them for producing this exhibition and to Risa Greenberg for making it possible. We also still have up at the museum at the moment Movement, Expressive Bodies in Art, an exhibition that showcases the expressive energy of the human body through art that has been a favorite of my kids since we've moved to Ottawa. We also presented Vertigo Sea, an incredibly beautiful video by John Akomfra that portrays the ocean as a site of both terror and beauty, with a few societal readings in there as well. It's a work that I first saw in Venice a few years ago, and for anyone that has ever been to the Venice Biennale, it's a place where you see way too much art, and it's hard to give more than a few minutes to an art piece, otherwise you're going to run out of time by the end of the day. And that piece totally stopped me in my tracks. I had to sit down, and I ended up spending an hour or an hour and a half watching the video, and it's really phenomenal. We also displayed the work of Divya Mehra, who won last year's Sobey Art Award. Fantastic artist, fantastic art piece. And then countless other works from the collection that we were able to rotate through in the permanent collection. And I want to thank everyone that made that happen. It's amazing to sit on an amazing collection as the National Gallery, but they have to make it up to the rooms, to the exhibition rooms, for people to be able to share them and see them and benefit from them. So thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Michelle, for making it possible with your teams to share this art with Canadian public. A few words about a number of prestigious awards that we have the chance to help put together every year. The Sobey Art Award and the Governor General's Awards were, of course, produced last year in the fall, and they were put together by artists and communities to conduct relevant regional programming in places across Canada. So beyond showing them or making them happen, reaching out to people across the country. An example of that is an evening with artist Titian Wright at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, where the Sobey Art Award were first created, and a conversation with Christy Silver Fox at the Yukon Art Center over the past year. These types of national programs will continue, and I hope even grow more present across the Canadian landscape and outside of Ottawa in the coming years.
For the Governor General's Awards, we also broke with the previous practice of reserving a separate exhibition space. Instead, we worked with artists and curators to place the work in appropriate locations throughout the permanent collection, thus creating a dynamic artistic dialogues. And I found this was very interesting, and I think the artists also appreciated this, so we want to continue showing them in this way.
The Lacey Prize, which is awarded to an artist-run center or community-focused galleries from anywhere in Canada to help them go further in their mission and have be better equipped financially to fulfill their mission and work with artists, is an extremely important prize that we're very happy and honored to organize every year with the Lacey Foundation. And for the Lacey Prize, we're coming up on the deadline to apply. So if there's anyone listening in the room or online, please do so apply. We get amazing candidates every year, but we want more amazing candidates, more candidates. So do apply, please. And I think it's important for the National Gallery to not focus only on major museum partners, but also on artist-run centers and community organizations to better weave the Canadian story. Coming up in exhibitions, Riopelle, Crossroads in Time.
This is an upcoming exhibition, a major retrospective of the work of Jean-Paul Riopelle. It'll start at the end of October in the context of the centenary celebrations organized by the Fondation Jean-Paul Riopelle. It will bring together 130 works, some of which have never before been shown to the public. Some will be presented in dialogue with contemporary artistic voices. So contemporary with Jean-Paul Riopelle, and also contemporary for our period. I would like to thank the Heffel Foundation and Via Rail for their financial sponsorship of the exhibition, as well as the National Gallery of Canada Foundation, the Young Family Foundation, and Don and Sheila Pether for their financial support. And of course, a very important actor for this project is Power Corporation of Canada, who really believes in Jean-Paul Riopel and this project.
Um, It's interesting to note that as we prepare for the 60th, the sexiest 60th Venice Biennale, that one of the major works of Riopel, that we commonly call Pavane internally at the gallery, really called Nymphea Pavane, was presented in Venice at the Biennale in 1962 in the Canadian Pavilion. Last June, we organized a not a public restoration, but a public cleaning up and preparation of the work. And hundreds of people came to attend and talk with the conservators and inquire more about how this process runs. And it's really fun to see the community come together like that. And I hope that we'll be able to organize other similar moments. And it's funny to note that when we did that, it's because we moved the painting, and it was the first time it had been moved in the gallery since 1960. We had to repaint the wall after. And also coming up, Nixikuruwak, amazing exhibition that it will open on November 17th with more than 100 artworks, a truly unique Inuk artist that has a dedicated following with and that is much appreciated, widely appreciated for the quality of the work. Both of these exhibitions will also benefit from major catalogs. I saw the maquettes, and they're very heavy table books. I hope your coffee tables are sturdy because they put on a bit of weight. A few words about Indigenous Ways also. As we look forward to September 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, I'd like to acknowledge the important work that department has done at the gallery. It was established in February 2022. And it's a department that is there to help us better understand the blind spots in our policies and procedures, to make sure that we remove any biases or hurdles that might be there that we had not necessarily taken enough notice of in the past. It's a powerful mechanism that will play an important role.
In 2022-2023, this particular department continued to expand considerably with the addition of several new staff members from the gallery who all come from Aboriginal backgrounds.
I also want to mention that on August 1st, we opened a new public art installation by Diana Bowen, and we, the same day that we did the opening, we were the first, and I don't want to get this wrong, but we were the first signatory of the UN's proclamation of the International Decade for People of African Descent.
That's an important document created by the UN, which had not yet been endorsed by Canadian museums.
And on that occasion, we had an amazing turnout by members of the community in Ottawa, but also people flying in from all parts of the country to attend this important historical moment. And it's a project that has attracted a lot of public interest. Just on the first month alone of the work being up, and of course there's a lot of didactic material that was produced for the work, physically on site, but also online digital content. But on the very first month of the exhibition, there were over 3,000 views of the artist's video that we put up on our YouTube channel, which is a considerable number. None of that would have been possible, this project, but all other projects that we do would have been possible without the partners, the innumerable partners that we have. So I'd like to take a second to thank them, to thank the Sobey Art Foundation, to thank the Canada Council for the Arts, to thank Scotiabank, Dr. John Lacey and his late wife Naomi, Mr. Michael Nesbitt, the National Gallery Foundation, and the National Gallery Foundation Contemporary Art patrons for their support for all the projects that we build. And there are countless others that I can't name tonight, but I can't wait to meet all of you individually and hopefully thank you in person and build future projects. And I'd like to also really extend my extreme sincere thanks to the team at the National Gallery. You're an amazing bunch, and meeting all of you individually over the past month and a half has been very heartwarming for me. As I told on, I think, the very first breakfast that I organized, and I've told the board and a bunch of people, I sincerely believe that alone there's nothing I can do, but together there's nothing we can't do. And I hope that the future will prove me wrong, prove me right. Damn. Won't prove me wrong, will prove me right.
So in closing, I want to say it's a great honor to be the museum's new executive director. And I look forward to working with you and to continue with you to contribute to the history of fine art in Canada. I hope we can do it all together, that the institution will continue to be a motor for all Canadians and for all visual arts in the country.
Thank you very much for your interest in the future of the National Gallery. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being online tonight. Merci, miigwech.
Thank you, Jean-François. As we heard, one of the priorities of the National Gallery of Canada is to build bridges in the entire country, across the entire country, by forging partnerships with communities and cultural organizations.
Alors, the first artwork commissioned under the gallery's new national outreach banner was a sculptural installation by artist Liam Gillick called A Variability Quantifier, the Fogo Island Red Weather Station, which is also a functional weather station on Newfoundland's Fogo Island. This project was carried out in partnership with Fogo Island Arts. Another recent partnership was a major art co-acquisition by the gallery and the Remy Modern of the two-channel video ISDN by acclaimed Canadian artist Stan Douglas. Part of his powerful exhibition 2011 Does Not Equal 1848, which was presented in Venice. Pour discuter
To discuss the importance of partnerships such as this one in the visual arts, the Canadian visual arts sector, we have the great fortune of having well-known representatives of these institutions.
Remy Modern co-executive directors and CEOs, Aileen Burns and Yuan Lund, were previously leaders together of prominent contemporary art institutions in New Zealand, Australia, and Northern Ireland. They have curated dozens of exhibitions and projects with an emphasis on commissioning new works.
We will welcome Jean-François Bellil once again.
And joining us virtually is Claire Shea, Director of Fogo Island Arts. Claire was previously the Deputy Director of Parasite, Hong Kong's leading contemporary art center and one of the oldest and most active independent art institutions in Asia. Bienvenue tout le monde. I will welcome our guests onto the stage and we will start the conversation.
Should we start dancing or singing or something?
Maybe. All art is beautiful art. Thank you so much for being here, all of you. It's wonderful to have you so we can get the discussion started. I want to start off by talking first about the reasons for and the outcomes of partnering with the National Gallery of Canada. Jean-François, you were able to set the table a little bit about the priorities and the reasoning behind that. So I was hoping to get some practical experience of people who have done it. I might start with Claire virtually, making sure that our sound functions. Okay, perfect. I just got a thumbs up, so that's great. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Apologies. The joys of hybrid models that we've learned during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll start in the room then as we get the technical issue fixed for Claire. So Aileen and Yuan, what was it like to partner with the National Gallery of Canada? What have you been able to get out of that experience? I'm assuming the first of many to come.
Well, I think it was a very interesting process. It took longer than I expected, and it's because I'm very impatient. It's nothing to do with the National Gallery or us. It's a very complicated thing to propose, even to an artist, to say, "Hey, we're two institutions. We're both going to buy your work." So there was many hurdles. I think both internally and getting Stan and his gallerists to come along with it. But I think what was really inspiring, and I'm not from Canada, I'm from Sweden. Aileen is from Canada, but been away a long time. I think we had been observing models, especially in Europe, of major museums partnering, especially backfilling or buying very expensive works of art. So really, because when you buy a work of art, you maybe show it for a while, but eventually it ends up in storage. And in some way, that's kind of sad because you really want to share it with people. So by co-acquiring, number one, you share resources, so it's more economical. But also, it means that museums, you tend to see it more because it goes from one institution to the other one. So it has kind of an extended life outside of the vaults that really felt quite important. And I think what was the thing that fast forward to the whole thing, and we were so happy to see, and it's truly a stunning work that we should be also proud of, that it live here and in Ottawa and for all Canadians to enjoy. But apparently MoMA and SF MoMA did the same thing. After we had co-acquired ISDN, they did the same thing. They bought it also, two institutions together. So we not only did get a magnificent work that we could get together, but also we set a sort of a precedent that other museums followed. So.
Thank you, Ewan. Aileen, do you have anything to add to your co-executive director's wonderful explanation?
Sure. The only element I would add is that following the acquisition, which was very positive, we were able to team up behind the scenes and really extend the life of the show outside the owning institutions exhibiting the work coast to coast. So it will exhibit in Vancouver and in St. John's. And touring works is a wonderful way to share them, but it is labor-intensive practice. So it's fantastic to be able to share the fundraising, share the administration, and celebrate the work of a great artist together.
Thank you very much. I will throw to Claire. Hopefully the technical issue was fixed. So the same question again, Claire. What was it like? What were some of the learnings of partnering with the National Gallery of Canada for the Fogo Island Arts and your collaborative project?
I think it was wonderful. Has been a really collaborative project on many, many levels. It began as a project that really allowed us to produce a work that created local, national, and international connections. Because in addition to partnering with the National Gallery of Canada, we also were part of the World Weather Network, which is an organization that brings together 28 different arts organizations around the world to make projects related to the weather as a way of speaking about climate change. So this really allowed us to bring in many different partners and also many different types of expertise, from really local expertise about building, particularly in relationship to fishing stages, which are the vernacular architecture of Fogo Island. And this was something Liam was really interested in replicating, also in terms of having a structure on a site that is subjected to like very high winds and difficult weather sometimes, to developing the weather station itself there and having the instruments there, to working with the National Gallery on things related to conservation and other aspects of the kind of longer life of the work. And again, to having this international network that would bring in audiences that might be new audiences to what we would normally have on Fogo Island, and maybe also within the National Gallery.
If I may interject,
Of course.
there's something really interesting in what both of you are saying, is that, you know, when two museums get together to acquire an artwork, financially it's an addition of money, right? It's X plus Y. But when the humans come in, it's a multiplication of resources, and I think that's key. And it's so through these collaborative projects, I really believe that you multiply strengths, opportunities, networks. And all these less quantitative things. And I think that's one of the driving forces behind trying to do these things. And I really believe that when you know, we have a national mandate, and we're experts in a number of things, but we can't be experts in everything everywhere. And it to a certain extent, it would not be very intelligent if we tried to become experts in the local scene in Saskatoon, or the network that you guys have built here, and the expertise that you've built through building, or in Fogo Island, through living there and knowing the people, or knowing the international scientific community around weather. Like, it doesn't matter how much time or money you give us at the National Gallery, we will never become international experts on climate and weather. And it's not what we're there to do. So, but through these partnerships, we can multiply these things, which is fantastic.
And multiply it not only in terms of the people, but also surface area. When we're talking about the vast country of Canada, we have a lot of territory to cover, certainly. I'd like to get all of your points of view on innovation. During our speeches, Jean-François, we spoke about the innovation you brought to the Musée d'Art Joliette, and in terms of innovative models relating to strategic collaboration for visual arts. Do you have any sort of examples that stand out to you? And the same question for all panelists. What is up and coming, and what are these new innovative approaches to involving people in art in many different aspects?
I don't think there's a single recipe for innovation, but it does involve, in most cases, an important dose of being on the edge of something, of going a little too far, or taking risks, or getting a little bit of that feeling. And partnerships partly do that too, right? It's a lot easier to acquire an artwork and show it in your own house. We've been doing that for decades. When you start having to do it with someone else that might have a different vision, that will contribute something, then there's that group brain effect, but also that group effect of like, oh, we can do that? Can we try that? Can we? But what's with? And then it pushes you a little further down that road, I think, in a very interesting fashion that I thrive on. Specific examples, I mean, at the National Gallery, in my full 20 days on the job, it's a little tough to say. But in other experiences, in other fields, in other jobs, tons of them. But it's always that. It's always like, all right, let's allow ourselves to take risk. Let's allow ourselves to maybe fall, and hopefully not. And then if you're in a group, you got that many more people to hold you back if you're about to fall. So there's perhaps a safer element there as well. And it's just getting to that state of like, I mean, an example is perhaps even digital content, where over the past couple of years I was trying to imagine with my amazing team new platforms, and I kept saying, like, let's not find the best solution for an online platform for today. Let's try to imagine what is going to be the need for the web of tomorrow. Like, how would this fare in 12 months or 18 months? This outside of the technological advances, because there again, we're not going to be experts in the technology of the web. So I think it's that mentality. I don't know what you guys think, if this makes any sense.
I'll take us in the opposite direction. I think in some ways, for me, the most radical thing we can do is stay true to the vision of the artists who we're working with. And our partnerships with artists, they're our first collaborators, our most important partners in everything that we do. And I think back through the last year at Rémy Modern, and Donna Rose and Betsy Rosenwald made an exhibition that had no technology, It was like paint markers on cardboard, a documentation of their lived experience of the pandemic, and that was powerful. And the innovation or the revolution in that project was to invite the audience to share their reflections on the experience of that exhibition, but their own experiences of the pandemic, which had an extraordinary multiplier effect. It diversified the voice in the room and created a really tense, difficult, anxiety-inducing exhibition that the innovation lay in the approach to respecting the audience and the artist. And I think that for me is the most exciting usually.
Yeah, we never got so many letters of support and so many angry letters. It was, I don't know, it was very interesting. We have never got so much hate mail and never so much like love, kind of, I love what you're doing. I just, and I have to say, Michelle Jakes, our chief curator, it's thanks to her and her team really to pull that off. And there was some tense moments there, Michelle, but we got through it and it was a great show. No, I think, maybe to riff a little bit on what Aileen was saying, I think one of the moments that we've heard other people recount, again, it involves Michelle, but it also involves other team members, was when we opened the Denise Tomaso's retrospective here. So Michelle expertly curated with their two collaborators, Salah Frater and Renee van der Averoyd. I always get her name wrong, apologies. Show of an artist that passed away way too soon. But when we opened the show here, also Michelle worked with a group of other Black curators from across Canada, a collective called Wild Black, to have a gathering around the show opening. But also, very importantly, there was a public, and that was kind of happened between the invited people, and they were here and they participated in things, but we also had a public moment, a gathering curated by our curator of social practice and public engagement, Troy Gronsdale, called Live Mixtape, which was a collaboration with, it would come out of Winnipeg. It was Elliot Walsh that had done a kind of a live hip-hop event in Winnipeg, and Troy built on that in a phenomenal way. So invited prairie hip-hoppers from across Canada, multi-generational. So we, on one hand, had this opening of this incredible Canadian artist, but also at night we turned it into like a nightclub full of some of the best hip-hoppers I've heard. So it was funny too, because our mayor came to both things, and our mayor, Charlie Clark, is very supportive, very present mostly, but he was saying he was there with his wife, and he said, I think I'm the oldest person in the room, and I love it. He was so excited to see this, this place being for so many audiences as well, not just for people who love incredible big abstract painting, but also people who love hip hop, or people that are concerned about Black representation in Canada and all the rest. It was, and the best thing about it, we had nothing to do with it. So it was also this, you love as a CEO when your team just like, you don't even know, you just come to these things and it's incredible, and you don't just feel proud like a parent, and yeah, that's it maybe.
Some golden opportunities here that we just heard about in Saskatoon at the Remy Modern. I'd like to hear your point of view as well, Claire, just bring you back into the conversation in terms of some innovative approaches that you've had to collaboration where you are.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'd also like to pick up on this point of respecting the artist's vision, and that's something that's been really fundamental to this project with Liam. The weather station itself is a functional weather station, which is something that the community uses on a regular basis to see what the weather is. It's also gathering data in a sort of remote area, because the weather data was previously coming from over 100 kilometers away, and this happens a lot in remote communities. So in order to determine what's happening really with climate change, having real data is incredibly important. So this is in some ways a tool. But then the other kind of very operational, I guess, side to the artwork is that it's also this fishing stage, or something that acts like a platform or a catalyst to bring in these other collaborators. And I think Liam was very aware that on Fogo Island, we're in a really, really unique context where we have a really vibrant community. And we also have Fogo Island Arts, which is an artist residency organization, which means there's artists constantly coming to the island. We're also part of Shorefast, which is a much larger charity, which brings in professionals working in environment, in foodways, and in community economies. So the idea was that this weather station is a platform that people can use, and it's open 24 hours a day. You can come to it, you can enjoy the beautiful view, or you can have a walk, as we've recently had with one of our geologists in residence, to talk about geology, to talk about climate. But this really kind of interdisciplinary approach to using the artwork has been really important, and it's created a lot of opportunity that we're only discovering now because the project has a long lifetime. So the beauty of it is that we can continue to pursue these ideas and see where the project leads us.
Thank you so much, Claire. It's greatly appreciated. I want to touch base on some new projects that are coming about. Here at the Remy Modern, we do have this canoe building project that you've mentioned to me before. And when Lyndon was here a little bit earlier, he was talking about the traditional Indigenous process for building a canoe. So I was wondering if you could touch a little bit on that decision to reintegrate some of these traditional learnings in a new innovative approach to share that with the general audience in Saskatoon.
I think Canoe 2.0 is a great example of interdepartmental collaboration at Remy Modern. So Michelle Jakes curated an exhibition called Canoe of really incredible historic works, more than 100 years of the representation of the canoe in Canadian painting from a private collection. And in the process of making that show, became more and more aware, interested, concerned about the self-representation of the canoe from its original makers. So Michelle worked with a program guide at the museum named Kelly Tolley and with Lyndon Linklater to think about how to bring the original canoe to life in this show and give it a great respect. And so Kelly Tolley comes from a community in Quebec where birch bark canoe making is still happening, and she connected with Pinook Smith, who still builds and makes canoes by hand. And Pinook exhibited a canoe in that show, but also then, flash forward a year, was invited to spend a good part of this summer making a canoe here in the museum, sharing that knowledge and technique with the communities here, teaching Kelly to build a canoe and really enlivening a conversation about that great, extraordinary mode of transportation that transformed these lands truly.
Thank you so much for that. Claire, I want to bring you in again, just briefly, if you could touch on the importance of the project, like the weather station, in terms of the future, because long-term data may be collected. And so how useful will this information be, this marriage between art and science, not only on a regional scale, but national and international as well?
Sure. I mean, I guess one thing I should mention is that this work is really, it derives from Liam Gillick's interest in the work of Suki Minabe, who's a Japanese-American climatologist, and really pioneered the mapping of climate data using computers, and was recently awarded a Nobel Prize for that. So I think that the key thing, at least that I'm learning with a lot of this climate science, is that data is really like the basic building block to really understanding what's going on. And it takes quite a long time. It takes about 30 years for scientists to really feel like they have enough data to understand what has been happening historically and what continues to happen in terms of climate science. So having this kind of information is incredibly valuable, and it also helps to, I think what people have been excited about with this project is it helps to sort of unsilo some of those conversations around the climate science, and it kind of gives it this platform within the arts or vice versa to kind of have some of these conversations.
Maybe to close out the conversation, Jean-François, I saw you were putting your mic up. What was your response to that?
Well, the thing that I find fascinating in all these projects that you're talking about is as partners, when we're partners, but even as colleagues and friends, is hearing the stories and of how it happened, of how it's happening, of how it will evolve over time, and gaining insight and learning stuff through things that you do versus that we do. So there's a multiplication there also of the learning that happens. And for that to take place, it means that these partnerships have to unfold over time. They can't be like a quick in and out, like, let's go there, let's do this, let's acquire a piece and put it on a pedestal and then walk away, but rather develop a relationship that will last through time, where the process leading up to the project is meaningful, but then the project is meaningful, and then everything that happens after. And every discussion that I've had about the weather station with José Drouin-Brisebois at the gallery has always been so enlightening, of knowing how it came about and how it's evolving and how it's growing into something else. And even José had all these stories about the local appropriation of the work, like how it's become a social space almost for different things to happen, which is like a whole other side of that project that is not as scientifically based, but that plays another role in the community. And there's something amazing to have the privilege to be part of these constructions where communities gather and communities come to exist long after you've set it up and you've put in the money, which is something that I find really fascinating and intriguing and promising for all of us.
It's beautiful to see how much art impacts individuals and how individual people will really absorb art in their own way. And now I actually want to turn over to the audience. It's your chance to have your questions.
Whether you're here in person or whether you're with us online, it's your turn to ask questions of our panelists. So questions can be asked to the chair of the board, Françoise, or to the director and CEO of the museum, Jean-François, as well as to our guest panelists, Aileen, Ewan, and Claire.
So it's really the audience's chance to ask questions. I'll ask if Françoise to come back on stage. And so for the audience here in person, there are microphones set up on both sides of the theater. So for people with limited mobility, we do have a roaming microphone that's available that can be handed to you if you have a question. And for the audience members who are online, you can submit your question through the Q&A option on your screen. We may not be able to get to all of the questions today in order to answer everything, but we will be posting a Q&A on the gallery's website for any questions that can't be addressed today. So if you would like to ask a question, I ask that you please identify yourself before you ask the question. I encourage you to keep the questions short and concise to ensure as many people have a chance to share their points of view as possible or to ask their questions as possible. I also ask you to be kind and respectful.
At the end, there will be a scrum opportunity for all participants. It will be organized with Françoise and Jean-François. So we'll ask you to be patient and hold your questions until then, so that members of the public have a chance to ask their questions. So this is for the media who are on site.
So just looking out at the audience briefly, do we have any brave individuals that want to ask a first question? Otherwise, I have a few in my pocket as well. Perfect. No one's online yet asking a question. I'll start with Françoise.
You talked about the influence of the COVID-19 pandemic on what's happened at the museum, at the gallery in the past few years. Are you optimistic in terms of the capacity of the NGC to recover completely? And I want to know if there were any lessons you learned during that time. The short answer is yes. I was very impressed by the resilience of that team. So you have to know that we had to close the museum many, many times. We had to delay exhibitions. We had to stop in the middle of an exhibition, stop all our functions. So the complexity of setting up an exhibition in a pandemic with social distancing, the capacity of moving art during those times was a great challenge.
What I can say is it shows a lot about how human beings really do need to interact in person when you're trying to put an exposition together. But the team at the gallery, even though we had to keep on sending them home, and many of the times we were working in, with a, obviously distanciation, which is not a word, but I've invented it in English anyways. It sounds better in French, trust me. Distanciation is a very sexy word in French. It was impressive. I mean, when you watched other industries and how they struggled and with the support or the lack of support they were getting, there really was a sense of family, and none of us could come together. We actually had virtual board meetings for almost 2 years. So instead of coming 4 times a year together, we spent 4 times on Teams. But, the reports we were getting back is like, it really brought people together. And I found it at the end of all this process, we got to learn about each other a lot more. And I feel very, very hopeful having gone through that. Like any crisis, if you go through with a team, I think you come out at the other end a lot stronger. And the resilience of this team was spectacular, to say the least. And I think all my board members would think the same way. If we had to go through this again, I don't think there's a better group of people I'd want to go through it with than them, quite frankly.
Merci,
Thank you, Françoise.
We have an online question that was submitted from Patrick Aubin for Jean-François Bellil. Do you have an exciting exhibition project in your back pocket? Something perhaps you started thinking about before you became the director and CEO at the NGC, and that might be possible?
I think someone is looking for a scoop. Unfortunately, I'm not going to give one. But yes, there are a number of dream projects that I've been thinking about for a long time that the Musée d'Art de Joliette didn't have the structure to make them happen. But rather than talking about individual artists or individual themes, maybe I'll take this opportunity to mention that the exhibitions that are the most interesting to me are the exhibitions that are meaningful today. Putting up a painting show that could have existed in 1962 is not as interesting. If it's so something that will bring something to the visitors, reflections, thinking points, questions that hopefully will encourage our community and our society to grow and to look at things differently. And it doesn't mean showing art that has never been showed before or that was produced in the last 6 months. It could be incorporating a point of view that is relevant and interesting in 2023 from the artist, of course. I think that positioning has to be the artist's voice and not the gallery's voice. We're not going to superimpose meaning onto things that we're not meant to be. But there's a lot of amazing, fantastic art out there, way more than we could ever put up in our individual galleries, unfortunately. But no, so in terms of exciting projects that I find interesting is what is meaningful today, what is going to help our society and our community grow for today and for the coming years.
Thank you, Jean-Francois, for that answer. I'll remind the audience members here in person, if you have a question, you can go up to one of the two microphones in the room. But with this point of view of this national speaking engagement, the national point of view, wanting to partner, I was hoping I could hear from Claire, Aileen, and Yuan about what distinguishes art in your areas, visual art. What makes it different from other art you might see in different cities across Canada?
Yikes. I really don't know how to answer that. I'll throw it to Claire, see if you can answer it.
Good luck.
Well, my initial response was that no, it's fine. My initial response was that I mean we have the benefit of living on an island of 2,000 people where there's a really rich history of making, and we also have an artist residency program where artists are constantly coming through and making new things. So I don't know that I can. I don't know that I can define it so specifically, but I can say that there's always really exciting things happening on Fogo Island in terms of the arts.
I'll answer for Yuan, who got stage fright.
Okay.
I think we came to Saskatchewan with a knowledge of like strong histories of abstraction and of landscape. And I think we've been struck since coming by the diversity of practice. You know, artists working from very distinct points of view in a great number of media. So Emily Atkins is here, like wonderful filmmaker with an incredible slow pace and a kind of color that you, I think, only can see when the sun is the way it is in Saskatchewan. And Wally Dion is here, and he's making work from circuit boards about fish we've forgotten and need to remember, who've been here since before humanity. And I just am so enlivened and excited by the diversity of practice and how distinctive each point of view is. So the legacies of landscape painting and abstraction persist, but so do points of view and media, ceramics. Oh, we have so many great artists here in the audience, it's terrible. That I didn't anticipate, and I am delighted by.
Thank you, Aileen.
I think there's something to be said about the specificity of a region, of an area, that resonates way beyond the border. Not necessarily that it's been shown or that it's known internationally, and there's something that I find really interesting in there and really rich. You know, we live in a world where the same chains are everywhere, the same restaurants are everywhere. You walk through Southeast Asia and there's 7-Elevens everywhere. So that global aspect is not as rich as the specificity that you find in a place when it resonates. If it only resonates locally, then it's a different story. It's not necessarily bad, but I'm really impressed and by local artwork that resonates internationally. And it talks about the human condition. If it does that, it means that it pulls on something that goes way beyond borders.
So there's always the individuality there that's available. Maybe just closing out as a last question, Jean-Francois, you've said you're at the National Gallery for 20 odd days now. So this touches a little bit on the online question we had. What are some of the learnings and achievements you've had from your illustrious career so far that will help you in this new role as director of the National Gallery of Canada?
I don't know how illustrious it really is, but it sounds great. I would probably social skills and people skills and connection with humans. And at the end of the day, what makes museums and what makes art is people. It's not fancy buildings. I love fancy buildings, but it's not the fancy buildings that make the art of the museum. And connecting with people is something that is, to me, extremely important and brings me so much joy and so much satisfaction. That is something that I've been living and growing over time. And to be able to do that in such a large team with such a large potential impact is fantastic. It's all of a sudden the megaphone has gone way bigger, and the connections is way, when it's not, and the listening device has gone way bigger, where you can interact and have a dialogue with that many more people, which I think will be important at the National Gallery, but it'll definitely highly enjoyable for me personally in a very selfish manner.
Jean-François, highly appreciated. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have today. So if you have sent an online question, we will shortly publish on the gallery website an answer to your questions. Thank you to all who took part in the question period. We really appreciate it. We're very grateful for your interest.
This now concludes the National Gallery of Canada's 2022-23 annual public meeting. We're very grateful that you took time out of your day to join us. It's very appreciated. A very big thank you as well to Aileen and Yuan and the Remy Modern for hosting us. This meeting was great to have in Saskatoon. It was wonderful. Thank you as well for participating in the panel. Big thank you to Claire as well, virtually online, for participating in the panel. It was great to have you with us virtually.
We also want to express our gratitude to everyone who made possible this annual public meeting, the technical team, the simultaneous translation team, and the American Sign Language and Langue des Signes du Québec interpretation team.
The video of today's proceedings will be published on the gallery's YouTube channel in the coming days. Everyone is now cordially invited in this room to go to a reception in the Riverview foyer. Thank you again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.